What's going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets, and welcome back to the last episode of the JK 1-ton swap video series. As you know, it's been a long process, a lot of videos, but the main goal was to help you guys out for people who are interested in the swaps. To wrap up this series, we're going to talk about how much did this axle swap cost me. We're also going to talk about some other price factors you might need to keep in mind, and overall what I recommend doing this swap. So stay tuned, sit back and enjoy it. And like always, if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about in this video, go down in the comments, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them. So let's get started and see how much this build cost me. In my first video of this swap series, I mentioned that my goal or my budget for these axles was in between $8,000 and $10,000. Did I go over? Did I stay under? Or am I right in the middle? We're gonna find out. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that by no means is this a cheap swap. $8,000 or $10,000, that's nothing to laugh at. That is a lot of money. But when you compare that number to, you know, suppose Ultimate Dana 60s that are $13,000, plus you still have to get drive shafts, new 8-lug wheels, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll compare the prices to my axles opposed to aftermarket axles. It's honestly a lot cheaper, but this is actually my second time filming this. I went around and I almost did like an itemized, price point on every single thing on the axle, and it turned out to be like 15 minutes long of me talking, and that was extremely boring. So we're gonna speed it up a little bit. I'm gonna put in the video description an itemized list, so if you are interested, seeing all the prices individually, you can check it out. But I have a little list right here, and we're gonna start off and seeing how much these axles cost me. So let's start off at the front axle. Ford Super Duty, 2005 and up, out of a F250 or F350. For the axle itself, I paid $500. Went with all Yukon gears inside, all that good stuff. Went with the Barnes 4-wheel drive swap truss kit, and that, all three of those, cost me, with including the axle, $2,270 to have the housing under the Jeep with gears, locker, and the truss. Steering, as you tell right here, it's a pretty good steering setup, and it actually handles really well on the road. Total cost for all this steering, $540. That included the Barnes 4-wheel drive high steer knuckles, the tie rod, and drag link, and I also stuffed aluminum inside this tie rod to make it a little bit stronger. Now, as you notice, I'm still running the factory differential cover. I'll change that out here shortly, but it's not necessary, you don't have to have that for this swap. But I mean, if we're gonna be wheeling, we're definitely gonna want a new diff cover in the future. But Barnes is actually coming out with a nice kit for that soon. But it's a nice steering, puts everything in great alignment. So pretty much for the front axle at $2,270 and our steering at $540, that puts us right around $2,800 for the front axle. Not too bad. One thing I want to note real quick is the fact that, a lot of my stuff I went with Barnes. Great thing about them is that you can get pretty much most of everything you need for this swap on their website, and the great thing is that they're always running deals. Every big holiday and kind of randomly, they'll do 15 or 10% off discount codes. So if you're smart, plan this build out. Don't buy everything, in one day. Wait for all these big companies to do discounts, and you can easily save 15% off your entire axle build. It's pretty cool. You just gotta be smart about it. So let's take a look at the rear axle. Rear axle is from a 2000, I think mine's like a 2002 14 bolt out of a 2500, but the year models we're looking for 99 to 2007 full float 14 bolt. Now, I actually picked up this axle itself for $100. These are pretty cheap if you can find them. Oh, let's see, for the rear axle, all in all, with Yukon gears, Grizzly locker, which is an automatic locker, truss swap kit, that put us at $1,867. That's not bad at all. Now, if we were gonna change out and move to a selectable locker like the ARB, that's gonna add an additional $500. So for those of you that are running 2012 and up JKs with the automatic transmission, you're gonna have to spend that extra $500, go up to $1,000 selectable locker. Now, do I recommend the auto locker now that I've had it for a little bit? I don't mind auto lockers. They're definitely not the best, but they are cheaper. I think this auto locker is about $480 opposed to $1,000 for an ARB. If you remember, I went with the Grizzly locker from Yukon. It's an automatic locker, super strong, but if you have the money, I would recommend going with the selectable. So, like I just said, our rear axle setup is $1,867. $67. I did add a few extras in there. Went with the crush sleeve eliminator, which extra 50 bucks. You can lower all these costs by going with the cheaper master install kit. The Yukon's a little bit pricey, but I think it has the better bearings in it, so it's worth it for me. All right, tools and equipment. This is not including stuff that I feel like you should already have for this swap. And what I'm talking about by this, like if you're thinking about doing this swap, you should already have, or at least know a buddy that will let you borrow. Let's see, you're gonna need a welder. I'm not factoring that cost into here. A shop press, and of course all the stuff for cutting, so sawzall, bandsaw, grinder, all that stuff hopefully you already have. If not, it's not too expensive, and it's definitely stuff you should already have. But when I talk about tools and equipment, I'm talking about the Yukon bearing removal tool. That was $400. Calipers, dial indicators to check our backlash on our re-gear. All that stuff added up to be $583, which is still not bad because we can use them in the future or we can sell them. And all of this is assuming we are doing the work ourselves. You know, none of this is including labor, because labor costs add up a crap ton. So honestly, if you're thinking about doing this swap and you're like, oh, I'll just have a shop do it, I honestly wouldn't recommend it, because you know, if you're paying somebody to set up your gears, that's $2,000 right there. All the welding and cutting, that's another $1,000. It just goes out the window really fast. Luckily you had this video series so you can tag along, watch, and see exactly how to do it. But that's it for tools and equipment. Not too bad, honestly. Plus we get to keep them or resell them. Next up is brakes. This is a big one. It depends on the condition your axles were in from the junkyard. So I actually went with the Power Stop kit, the full kit, front and rear. As you can tell, we got the new Power Stop drilled and slotted rotors, nice powder coated calipers, and brake pads. So I went with that for the front and rear. And honestly, it really depends. If you get a set of axles that are pretty much brand new straight off the truck, you know, you might have to change the brake pads out. You're not going to have to buy new calipers and rotors and all that stuff. However, if you found a junkyard axle that's really rusty, there's no telling how old it's been, you know, sitting in a lot for, I'd recommend just putting all new stuff. And overall, the Power Stop kit is amazing. It stops this thing on a dime. And I haven't even upgraded my master cylinder yet with the J8 kit. It's still on the bench back there. So how much were my brakes? That is $1,219. That's for all new brakes, front and rear, from Power Stop, and that is including the $265 for the master cylinder, the J8 kit. So you could easily bump that number down. Just go with factory axle parts. You know, you could probably get that down to $700. All new stuff, including the master cylinder and brake booster. Now I'm going to say that it's not exactly necessary if you go with the Power Stop kit. My brake is a little bit soft, but it stops this Jeep on a dime. It is insane. I haven't even put it in yet. I don't know if I will. I'll probably keep it, put it on at a later date. But right now with the Power Stop setup and these huge, massive, the calipers, they stop amazing. So yeah, $1,219 is what I spent on my brake setup. Now, wheels. We're gonna need new wheels. I went with the Vision 8-lug wheels in a beadlock pattern. These things, the pricing is all over the place on the internet. It depends where you order them from. I got mine $300 a piece. I've seen them down like $250, and I've also seen them up to $400. But for all 5 wheels, I'm not running a spare, but it's in there. $1,500 for new wheels. You could cheap out. You could go with Steelies, or you could go, you know, very expensive with Race Lines or Trail Readies and spend a lot more. Next up, one of the other big purchases is new drive shafts. I went with Adam's drive shaft, and roughly $1,400 isn't too bad. I needed a new drive shaft anyways. I was still on stock axles, but if you've already upgraded your drive shafts, you might be able to send them in and get them lengthened or shortened. Call up Adam's, get a quote, and yeah, $1,450. You can also get your yokes from there on the rear 14 bolt. The factory came with a 1410 yoke on the axle. I changed it for $1,350, so we have all matching yokes on our drive shaft. Everything's $1,350. If you want to save a little bit of money, you can keep the yoke that's on the axle, the 1410 yoke, and when you call up Adams to order a drive shaft, tell them that you'll save a little burp there. I'm laying sideways. You'll save about $100 keeping that stock yoke, but honestly, what's $100 in this whole swap? I'd rather have all 1350. Front and rear. I did that backwards. Front and rear. Now it's time to talk about tone rings and wheel speed sensors and all that good stuff. For the rear, we're using the factory JK wheel speed sensors. Pull them off your old axle, reuse them. But we did have to order the tone ring kit from Artec. That was $70 for the 60-tooth tone rings, as well as the brackets. $70 for that. I would recommend that you have your tone rings pressed on at a machine shop. Got the little family coming out here. It's gonna be about $100. Now, if you remember, I tried to do it myself with a Dremel and pushed them on. One side works, the other one doesn't. So I have an ABS, all the ABS lights are on, and luckily, you know, it's not that big of a deal because eventually I'll take the hub off, get it machined down so my wheel speed sensors all read correctly. Now, one thing I do want to note talking about wheel speed sensors, I'm hearing from people that the JScan, the app using the 60-tooth setting, is not working out so well. I can't test it out because I have a faulty wheel speed sensor. But does that mean, you know, like, oh no, I won't be able to, you know, run 60-tooth on my Jeep? You don't have to. There's an option. Let me turn this fan off real quick. So if you want to save a little bit of money and avoid running the Artec Super unit bearings, those are an extra $800, but they work really good for the JK, the newer Jeeps. If you want to retain, you know, the cheaper option using the Ford unit bearings up front, 60-tooth in the rear, you just got to do a little math formula. So what we're going to do is take the stock 52-tooth, divide that by 60. That's our new. That's what's in the Super Duty axle. We're going to multiply that times either our tire size or gear size. So let's start off with tire size. And this is what we're going to input with our JScan app to make our computer happy. So stock's 52 divided by 60 times the actual tire size. In my case, it's close to 39 inches. So if I do 52 divided by 60 times 39 equals 33.8 inch tire. That's what we're entering in to our computer to make our wheel speed sensors happy. Now for our gears, same thing, 52 divided by 60 times, in my case, our gear ratio is 538, equals 4.66 gear ratio. Now in the past, the issue with doing that formula was due to the fact that most programmers don't allow you to input weird stuff like that. Most of the programmers don't have 466 gears as an option. However, the JScan app added 466 because it's a pretty common ratio when swapping these axles. The 538s turned into everything. He's like, oh, let's add 466 to make these computers happy. So definitely a neat option. Hopefully you saw that. It's pretty easy. And that's how people have been running it in the past. But the issue was with the fact that most programmers didn't have the option to add weird stuff like that. So if you don't want to do that, the next thing would be spending $800 on the Artec Super bearings. Those come new with the 52 count tone rings, and then at that point you would just change your rear out to 52 tooth. It does make it easier, but that's an extra $800 to the swap. So that is your decision. Make it wisely. I would honestly try to make the 60 tooth work first, since the tone rings are only 40 or 50 bucks. See if you can make it work, plug it in, plug that formula into your JScan app, and if you still can't get the computer happy, go ahead and fork out the money for the unit bearings and then just change out your rear tone rings. So it's worth gambling 40 bucks to possibly avoid losing 800. However, if you're already changing your unit bearings, like if your Super Duty didn't come with unit bearings or they're already toast, at that point I'd probably go with the Artec unit bearings and just plan out from there. So what did my total cost come out to be? I'm sure there's a lot of little factors I didn't include, like bolts and nuts, but that's like, you know, I might be, if I'm guessing my margin of error for this price, it's probably going to be between $100 and $200 margin of error. But my price for these entire axles, everything, $9,500. Not too bad. So now let's talk about $9,500 versus other axles. But first, I gotta go let my GoPro charge. I'm at, let's see, what percent are we on? Yeah, we're pretty low. So I'm gonna charge my GoPro up real quick, and we'll talk about how $9,500 is. I mean, I'll keep talking till this thing dies. I could probably sell my current Rubicon axles right now for about $5 grand. It's a Pro Rock front, rear Rubicon 44 rear. They're already geared, already have lockers, have the steering, RCVs, chromoly shafts in the rear, blah, blah, blah. So I could probably sell those for $5,000. If you're already on, like, if you're on, you know, stock JK axles like a Dana 30 and Dana 44, not re-geared, you might be able to get $1,000, maybe $1,500 out of them, but that's even pushing it. So I wouldn't bank on recouping your money from stock axles. But if you've already done some upgrades, we could sell those and recoup a lot of money. You know, if I sold those for $5 grand, I'd only be in this swap, what's, you know, 4,000 something, which would be awesome. But I think I'm gonna keep those to put in the LJ. Actually, Cassie kind of said that. She's like, I want those axles under the LJ. So we'll be putting that there. But let me charge the GoPro and we'll do some comparison of pricing between Ultimate Dana 60s, Dynatracs, Currys, and all that good stuff. We're back with the fully charged GoPro. I've realized that I could talk for hours about this swap, but overall, for about $9,500, you can do the swap very similar to I did and have an amazing result. But let's do some quick comparisons of these axles versus some off-the-shelf bolt-in axles. So some of the cheapest ones are gonna be the Ultimate Dana 60s. They're pretty strong axles, they're bolt-in. However, I'm not a big fan of a Dana 60 rear. The 14 bolt has a bigger ring gear, has the pinion support. Overall, I think it's a better axle. It's a little bit stronger, but of course, the Dana 60 full float is definitely gonna be a huge upgrade to any Jeep axle on the market. So the the Ultimate Dana 60 comes in right around $14,000. That's one of the cheapest price because it actually includes drive shafts with it. So that's pretty cool. But $14,000, you still are gonna have to get new wheels. You're gonna have to get 8-lug wheels. So that's gonna be, add the $1,500 to that. You're still probably gonna wanna get that the J8 kit, the master cylinder booster. That's another $260. That puts you right around $16,000. That's insane. I don't know about you guys. $9,000, I can probably afford that. I mean, I did, but I mean, like, it's more realistic opposed to $16,000. Now let's look at the Pro Rock 60/60 combo. That's pretty much the same thing. It's $13,000 for the axles, $1,400 for drive shafts, $1,500 for wheels, master cylinder booster. That puts you right, once again, around $16,000. Still pretty crazy. Great axles though. And you know, the combo that I'd say is very similar to the Super Duty 60 and 14 bolt combo is going to be the Pro Rock 60 and 80. The 80 is a little bit stronger than the 14 bolt, but the 14 bolt is definitely stronger than the 60. So for the Pro Rock 60/80 combo, total after drive shafts, wheels, booster, $18,000. I'm not going to say anything about that. $18,000 versus $9,500. Still a lot of money, but you can even do it cheaper than this. If I was, you know, really tight on money but still wanted to do this swap, I say that you could probably get this down if you took your time, shopped around, you know, maybe even got a few used parts, you could probably get this down to $7,000, which isn't bad. Not bad at all. For a set of 1-ton axles that can definitely handle pretty much any abuse you can throw at them, even $9,500 isn't that bad. Now, you do have to take into account how long it actually took you to do it. There's a lot of labor involved in this, and it's definitely best if you spread out the work. I think I took about 3 or 4 months to do this, and even that felt a little bit rushed. Maybe it was because I was making the videos along with it, but the best thing about this swap is the fact that you did it. Knowing that every bolt that is installed is something that I touched. I did the gears, the lockers, the welding, everything. It puts more passion into it opposed to just swiping a credit card for $16,000 and saying, hey, look at my tons. There's something nice knowing that, hey, I built this, these are my axles. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a pride thing, or just knowing that you did it. I don't know, it's a great learning experience, it's a lot of work, but overall, I would definitely do it again. Now, a few things to note. If you have like a 2007 to 2010 JK with a 3.8, the 6-speed with these is not too bad. I can still do 80, but that's pushing it. This thing likes to cruise around 60 and 70 miles an hour. That's its sweet spot. It can go higher, but I don't like putting that much stress on the engine. So it does take a little bit of daily driving out of it. I mean, I've been daily in it since it's been done, and it does great. However, it's not something, you know, if you're commuting on the freeway every day and everybody's going 80, I don't know if I would really recommend it. Now, if you have a 3.8 with the automatic transmission, that even takes even more out of it. I don't know if I'd really recommend that without a power upgrade, whether it's a supercharger, a V8 swap. But the automatic transmission with the 3.8, it's really going to be a slow Jeep. 65 is probably going to be like your top speed. So that's definitely something to think about. We're adding a lot of weight, unsprung weight to the Jeep, rolling resistance, all that stuff is going up like crazy. But with the 3.8 and 6-speed transmission, it's definitely doable for a daily driver. My miles per gallon right now is about 13 to 14 with the 538s. Now, if you're running a 3.8, go 538s, don't look back. If you have a newer Jeep with the 3.6, it's possible to get away with the 513s. However, it's just personal preference. Personally, with 40s and really heavy axles, you need all the RPMs you can get. So overall, the swap is definitely doable. It's pretty affordable compared to other options, and overall it's a badass result. Now, one thing I do want to note, because I've actually seen a few people in a few posts having failures with this axle. It's not the axle's fault, it's more of the install portion. So biggest thing to do is when you are making this cut right here, trimming away that casting, do not cut into the axle tube. Take your time. If you cut into the axle tube when you're removing this casting, you're creating a weak spot. And a few people have actually had this part crack. When they were doing the, you know, all the trimming and everything for the truss, they cut too deep into it, welded over it, but during hard impacts, the tube actually broke. Now, the main thing about that is those guys that cut too deep, most of them were running coilovers, which means instead of having the coil, all the weight distribute on the truss up here, the coilover was actually mounted to the axle tube, so it kind of magnified all the stress on that cut axle. So when you're doing it, if you haven't done it already, make sure you take your time with cutting that casting off. Don't cut into the axle tube. If you nick it a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. You're gonna weld it up anyways, but definitely don't cut, you know, like a 1/4 inch deep all the way around, because that's just creating a huge spot for stress. But overall, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed the videos. I know it's a very long series. I probably could have shortened it up some, but I think it's one of the first, it is the first YouTube video series on doing this. And it's coming to a close. That's it. It's done. It performs well. And I'll be talking about it more in future YouTube videos, but we have a lot more videos to do. It's like a sentimental thing, like closing out this series. It's fun making YouTube videos. It's very aggravating during it, you know, making the videos, posting the videos, not really getting the reaction that you think you're gonna get. But overall, I've been happy with the series. I know it's gonna be something for the next 10 years, it's gonna help people, but I know it wasn't entertaining. I know this video is entertaining, and I'm excited to get back to making entertaining videos that apply more to the everyday Jeeper. And those videos are still coming. Just because I'm on tons doesn't mean I'm gonna be doing all these crazy videos. There's still a lot of little mods I like doing and all that stuff. And like I said, those JK axles are going in the LJ soon. I don't know if I'm gonna be doing that on my channel or Cassie's gonna be doing that on hers, but at this point I'm rambling on. It's time to close out the 1-ton video series, guys. That's it. We're done. Thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you will. Like always, if you have any questions ever, throw it in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks for watching. Until the next time, guys, we got a lot more coming. Peace.